society really comes from the Bible, the principle of representation. And therefore, he says that through the transgression of one, that is original sin. But here's level number two. Original sin leads to inherited sin. That is, you are born with a sin factory in you. It's called a sin nature. It's inherited sin. Just like, see, when you gave birth to your children, if you're a parent, you didn't just determine their race. You didn't just determine the shape, size of their nose. You didn't just determine the texture of their hair. All of that you determined because you passed on DNA. Let me tell you something else you passed on, a sin nature. You didn't just pass on something physical. You passed on something spiritual. And the spiritual is the result of the original. Adam was the original copy. Everybody born are carbons of that copy. And they pass on the nature to sin. That's like GM. Guess what GM does? It pumps out cars. Guess what the sin nature does? It pumps out sin. So there is original sin, that's Adam. There is inherited sin, that's us. And then there is personal sin. A lot of people say, well, I'm mad at God because I didn't ask Adam to represent me. Okay, let's get rid of Adam and let's just talk about you. Let's forget Adam. Let's just talk about you. What's your name? Okay? If you get rid of Adam, you haven't solved the sin problem because we still have our personal sins, both of attitudes and of actions. So there is original sin from Adam. There is inherited sin, the sin nature. David says, in sin my mother conceived me. That is, from my birth I was a sinner. Bible says we are born in sin and shaped in iniquity. Are by nature the children of wrath, Ephesians 2:1. So there is inherited sin, and then there are personal expressions of sin. Now, all are sinners, all just don't express it the same way. All have sinned, and you may be taller than your neighbor, but God is not measuring you against your neighbor. He's measuring you against his holy standards. Now, why is God doing this? Why is God setting it up this way? God wants us to clearly see how sinful we are so we can fully appreciate the meaning of the cross. If you don't see yourself as a sinner, then you don't see you need to be saved. If you don't see yourself even as a Christian as sinful, then you will lose sight of the cross. Why is it that so many of us as Christians don't see the value of the cross even though we saw it when we first got saved? Because somewhere along the line we lost the substance and significance and importance of understanding the nature of sin against the standard of a holy, righteous God. Whenever that happens, even if you're already a Christian, the cross gets lost, its brilliance gets lost, and therefore its effectiveness gets dulled. So the cross loses its effectiveness even among saints because we forget the standard of God versus the sinfulness of men. And so there is, first of all, the standard of God. He is absolutely holy, which means he has a standard of righteousness which is expressed through his law. The cross refers to the sacrificial death of Christ for sin. But if you don't understand the standard of God, and if you don't understand the sinfulness of men, you won't appreciate and benefit from the death of Christ. It says Jesus died for sinners. The Bible describes sin as a bill. Remember the Lord's Prayer? Forgive us our debts. It's referring to sin, but he uses it as a bill. You and I are in debt to God because his standard is non-negotiable, but God demonstrated his love. God says, I can't compromise my character. I got to stay God. I'm holy. I'm righteous. but I love my creation. So how can I demonstrate my love without compromising my character? I got to get full payment. They can't afford to pay because it'll take them forever. But I can't change the bill. Somebody else then must pick up the tab. But the person who picks up the tab can't be in debt themselves. You can't pay my bills off if you can't pay your bills off. So somebody's got to pick up the tab. And since Romans 6:23, the wages of sin is death, therefore the bill is death because of sin, somebody's got to die who's not in debt. But the only person not in debt is God. But the problem with God is God can't die because God is a spirit. So I need somebody with the perfection of God, but who's a man like me who can die. So guess what God did? God became a man. His justice demands death. His love offers mercy. Therefore, there must be a person who is perfect, but who can also die. So God becomes a man in the person of God the Son, Jesus Christ. Now stay with me here. Jesus Christ is the perfect Son of God. When it comes to this subject, here's my verse. My verse is 2 Corinthians 5:21. He who knew